I don't know. I don't know if we can count though. The chat if they start before we hit the live session. Do those
I
count?
know.
I mean, Ryan's starting at 5:56. I think that's getting a little. I don't know. I don't think we can count that one. They only count once we go live. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know.
So you saying Ansira is the first person?
Yeah, I would think. It's 100%. So because he's the first one as we went live. So I think we need. As with anything, the rules sometimes are constantly evolving. So that would be a new rule for pure officiating on
I
DSP.
like that.
You guys get caught up on sleep?
Maybe. Not,
Not yet.
not
I'm not. I
really.
haven't caught up yet.
Not really. But just keep on trucking, right?
That's it.
Man, I don't know yet about you guys, but last weekend was a blast. It's fun. It's always great when you get in a camp environment. Just the energy around it. Talking football. Learning more about people from around the country, around the globe, if
Yep.
you will. And I just always come home from a camp, just kind of reinvigorate. I mean, not physically, obviously, because we're dead dog tired physically, but mentally and just kind of football spirituality, if you will. Always seem to come home with a little bit of extra pep in my step.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, Corey. It's to me, it's really cool just to meet people like you're saying from around the country. Like I don't know. I don't know. That for many of us, we don't for our work, our private work in our lives, we aren't traveling around the country every week. Some of us do just because that's what our jobs entail. But most of us, we work in the city that we live in. And maybe we'll go on vacation every now and then. But other than that, we wouldn't see people or interact with people. But football has really, for me, I know, has given me the opportunity to interact with people all around the country, all around the world. And it's really cool to really see these people and to interact and to fellowship, and then just to know wow, I know somebody from Seattle, Washington, like Ryan Leininger, and I'm like, dang, why in the world would I ever know somebody from Seattle, Washington? And it's all because of football.
That's right. That's right.
Really cool. All right. Well, of course, first VSG after camp, we always are going to have camp plays. So let's just jump right into it. Let's see if I can get this first play loaded up. This one is from our Thursday night scrimmage. It would be nice if the scrimmage, there we go. And we're going to get the poll started. We're going to see a hit at the end of the play. And we're going to go into our favorite category, which is targeting. So you're going to have to evaluate the defenseless player, whether we have an indicator or not, and then the forcible contact element.
The snaps that we get, we've been fortunate to get this year so far have been phenomenal. Like, to get two teams that aren't playing, scrimmaging each other, it just adds another element to it. Because if you're working, inter squad scrimmage, they're not going to have hits like this. They're not going to try to kill somebody. So from a camp perspective, we really like it when people try to murder one another on the field. So and we had a couple of those over the weekend.
Oh yeah, we got one coming up that we'll look at where there was
we had real live roughing the passer to evaluate from camp. It's like, where do you go and get roughing the passer?
Right. What about roughing the passer with targeting, Brandon?
Right. Exactly. I mean, quarterbacks usually have those red colored jerseys on or whatever, some off colored jersey, but not here.
Right.
And even though I believe one or two of the coaches said, my quarterback's not live. Well, guess what? His team was going after their quarterback.
Right.
So it was on. Like, whatever.
And one thing we can see from the sideline angle best,
it's good
just
video.
excellent camera work by the sideline camera operator.
Just when you need somebody to step up, you just never know where it's going to come from, Tuta.
Right.
You just really never know where it's going to come from. I mean, look at that subtle pan. Keeping the line of scrimmage official in the picture is just unbelievable.
Okay, enough of that. What I really wanted to point out was the center judge's mechanics. We talk a lot of times, we get into critique mode because that's really what we want to do is get better. So a lot of times we point out deficiencies or opportunities for improvement in terms of getting better. But here, if we could really just I really love the center judge's mechanics on this. You can see some dead ball action even in the end zone view with some players. The center judge, he could easily just run to the spot, say, I got to get this spot, run to the spot, and ignore that. But what he did is he recognized some potential and ran straight to that area as the play was ending. And I think that's just phenomenal dead ball mechanics to work that action instead of worrying about the ball. And then he and the umpire, you could see, had a little conversation. He's checking to make sure, is it position 5? Is it position 4? To me, just really, really, really strong work by the center judge on this play.
Owning your position.
Owning the position.
Yeah, and I mean, to be funny, with all due respect to the umpire, center judge beats him to this little what would you call this?
Fracas? Will we go with fracas? How you go, Corey? I was thinking that too.
I like it.
Or for those of us who have smaller vocabulary like Brandon Cruz, let's just go with dust up.
Dust up. That's 2 words, both one syllable. I think it works.
Yes, I think you can. I think you can manage that.
I think you can pull that off. I'm joking about the umpire.
Are you?
We saw a lot of different umpire center judge mechanics this weekend, so that is good, I think. Boy, it sure has evolved, hasn't it? When did we put that in? We didn't do anything. We implemented, whoever put it in, 2014, I think, is the first year I worked it.
Yeah. And
man, it's different now. And unfortunately, I'm saying unfortunately because just not how it worked for me, but everybody's kind of building out their own little iteration of who should, umpire, center judge. Some people are we heard some people are now rotating balls through the center judge to the umpire.
Yes.
And taking the deep wings out of ball rotation. Corey, I don't know if you've heard that. That's a thing now. Yeah.
Yep.
Like a mechanic, like written somewhere, not in the national manual, but some conference. I don't know if they're experimentation or whatever. And then, some are more just kind of saying, center judge, just stay back, just, traditional everything, but center judge is going to stay back. Some are just kind of leaving it up to them, I think, which is cool. And then, there's still conferences, I believe, where it's traditional crew of 8. It's 8 years old, that are basically having the umpire stay back, which was the original intent, maximize that position on the field in terms of vision pre-snap, vision after the play, not so much darting right for the pile, but staying back, getting to the pile if you have to, but, being more of another set of eyes for dead ball officiating and then being in position pre-snap. So it's really interesting where that's gone.
Right.
In only 8 years.
Right. And that leads to challenges too at camps, in camps too, Brandon, because everyone wants to ask us, how do we handle this? How do we handle this? And really the answer is you got to talk amongst your crew, because a lot of times it's geographically dependent. Well, wherever you work, that's the way you're going to do it. So, you kind of got to figure it out amongst your crew as well when you get to the camp setting. I know that's tough. And we probably should think about that and do a better job with that.
I guess, but why? I don't know why we would do that, honestly. I know it's up for debate. We'll talk about it. I think it was a good ask from several people. Yeah. What are we doing? What mechanics are we using? And we're just like, I don't know. Are we doing the new rules or not? Like, yeah, sure. Or not, for that matter. I don't care. If you're going to make a decision, just know why you made a decision. And maybe that's one thing is consistent. We've all been a part of this. Officials want to be told what to do, how to do it, where, why, when.
God, I know.
I mean, and it's like, I don't know about you, but your next game you're going to work, which is probably this coming weekend, you will be able to predict exactly nothing that happens in that game.
Right.
There will be 11 players on one side and 11 players on the other when the ball is live. They'll probably run and pass and kick a little bit, but, the detail of what's going to happen, I don't know. So you got to be able to flex and be dynamic to that stuff, or you will wither on the vine in this business.
People are slow to vote here, probably because maybe they're figuring out. I don't know. The video ain't good enough. I can't figure it out. I don't want to be wrong. Whatever. The intent of polling is not to be right or wrong. It's really to just to kind of quantify the room and get everyone involved a little bit, if you will, in the discussion. So I'll close the poll since people are a little hesitant to vote. First element: defenseless or not. Looks like 6%. Oh
no, we got 12%.
12% of us say this is a defenseless player. What are we seeing there, Corey, relative to defenseless, not defenseless?
Well, let's start with the classification. What type of a player is he? He is a runner. So we have different types of rules that and classifications for players that are runners. And it's very, very rare or infrequent that a runner is defenseless. So unless he is wrapped up by a couple players not going forward or laying on the ground, that's the only two times I can think of where he may be defenseless. So this to me is not a defenseless receiver or a defenseless player.
Right. There you go. So we got to make sure we understand that he's a runner. He's not defenseless. This player is not defenseless. And we had an interesting play that we looked at during the kickoff session at camp where some of us wanted to make a runner who hit the ground instantaneously become defenseless, which is an interesting concept. Whatever, it's up to people to decide how they want to handle that. But this is clearly a runner who's upright, not being held. His forward progress is not stopped. This player is not defenseless, so we cannot call this player defenseless. All right, moving on to the indicator. All right, Corey,
it's 26 yes, 74 no.
Okay. 26% of us say there is an indicator. 74% say no indicator. Okay, what do you see?
I do not. For me here, I see this guy. He's just trying. I mean, I'd like to see. Sometimes. Well, let's go back. So an indicator for us, and we talked about this a lot at camp over the weekend. An indicator is an evaluation of the defender's technique, and that's really it. And I think if we boil it down and keep it that simple, I think it will help because to me, I think this is the hardest one where people really we're very, to use a word we don't like to use, is inconsistent. We're very inconsistent with our definition of indicators because I think a lot of times we apply where's the hit, where's the forcible nature.
Yes.
We have our own separate element for that.
Right.
And so if we just look at the defender, look at his intent, look at his body angle, the physics of the body, and just evaluate that, I think that will help people get on, kind of find a better comfort zone with the indicator aspect of this. And so for me, while I would like this defender to have a lower target zone, I personally don't see an indicator on this one. I think he's coming in, he's kind of leading with that right shoulder. Other than that, I don't see any type of a launching. I don't see any type of a thrust. So to me, I'm with the 74% that did not see an indicator. What about you?
I'm gonna withhold my response until I hear from Mr. Brandon Cruz. What do you? Oh, Daniel's here too. Wow, look at that. So we'll listen to Daniel too. Brandon, what do you got?
I was going to comment on what we heard this weekend, but I guess I'll comment on this play. Let me comment on what we heard this weekend. And Corey said it, but I want to reiterate. A lot of folks, I guess this has been happening all along, but as we kind of grow with this process, we're starting to hear it more. A lot of folks are using other elements to justify their decision on other elements.
Right. Yep.
Now, that is prudent, though. That sometimes that's prudent. Like if the player's defenseless or not, then it kind of informs what kind of indicator is there. But if the player gets, what do we call it down there?
P-laid.
Yeah. If the player gets P-laid, that doesn't automatically mean there's an indicator. And if the player gets not P-laid, that doesn't mean there's not an indicator. Anyways, so it was very eye-opening, but I think that's a sign of evolution. Like people are trying to tie these things together. I think we're doing good. Would you like me to answer now? I don't see an indicator. I'm with Corey. I have everything that Corey has.
DY?
Yeah, I'm with Brandon and Corey also not having an indicator.
Dang. So I didn't know I would be on the island. I do have an indicator.
Well, that was what you wanted us to do. Remember in the script you put out?
Yeah.
I didn't type up that script. I don't know where you got that from, but it might be
That was
from
a
an
leak.
older session. Yeah. I have this
Somebody
dude
leaked
dipping
it.
his head and leading with
Okay.
the crown of his helmet. And for me, and I know we can't just say dipping the head and stop there. I do have him dipping the head, and I do think he made contact with the crown of his helmet. So,
Whoa.
well, I didn't say anything about forceability. I didn't say anything about forceability. I think because here's the deal: if he
But
dips his head,
what you're
and
saying
then-
is you see him attacking with the crown of his helmet. That's really what we
Yes.
kind of want to talk about.
yes, I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. What angle are you using so that I can refine my
End zone angle.
try to understand what you're saying? Okay.
End zone
Okay.
angle. I do see that. But that's I haven't thrown my flag yet, obviously.
Right. So leading and attacking with the crown of the helmet, right?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have an interesting discussion. I think when we talk about the next element, because I think I hear where you're going here. But I do
All right,
see
good.
I do see an indicator. It's light,
All right.
but I think it's there for me. I think it's there. So I'm with the 26%.
Okay. Well, we built some islands this weekend. I was on a
We
few.
did.
So that's not all that bad. You know?
No.
It's not all that bad.
Okay, now the forceability 69%, Corey, is that right?
Yeah, I got
Say-
68-32, but yeah, we can go whatever.
All right.
See, and, before you guys start talking, this is the one where I think we did have some. So, what percent said no, not defenseless here? Like a
88.
lot, right?
88. Yeah.
So, what we're now, this is the one where you get related because
I
you
know.
are now looking at the forceability. If you don't have the players defenseless, you are looking at the forceability with the crown of the helmet. Otherwise, nothing really matters. I mean, if you
That's
do have
correct.
him defenseless, then you're looking at the forceability, either with the crown or to the head and neck. So, okay, go ahead.
Which kind of indicates also, no pun intended, that we probably need to have a higher percentage of people with an indicator, right? Because if only what percent said
Yeah,
74% said no indicator. 26% said they do have an indicator.
And then what about the defenseless element? It's only 12. It was 88% of us said this player is not defenseless, right?
Yeah, we have like in essence we had 1 out of 10 said defenseless, and then 1 out of 4 said there was an indicator, but then 3 out of 4 say it's forcible.
And that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, especially with the type of contact. I agree with that.
Right.
especially with my great visual effect this weekend when I was punching you in the face. Remember that?
Yes, I don't
that was really
remember
good.
that. Yes, I don't remember that. But nice try.
I would have loved to have seen that. We should have done that in the closing session.
Oh, I don't know. You didn't quite make the kickoff session if I remember properly.
It's true.
Oh, okay.
Is that when the supposedly face punching occurred?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It was a mock, but I mean, I think everybody knew what would happen if it was real life.
Okay, so for the forceability aspect, let's actually get to real life here. Forceability. Corey, do you see forcible contact to the head or neck area of this player? Because we've already said, or do you see forcible
Other way
contact with the
around.
crown of the helmet? Let me stop
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
I do see forcible contact, but to the head or neck area, I don't see crown. To me, this screams side of the helmet to me.
Yeah.
But that's just, I mean, that's trying to splice two angles of video together and then juxtaposing what that might look like if we had a different angle. So that's where I stand with that.
I think if our sideline camera angle operator would have had maybe a closer viewpoint on this, maybe it would have been a better. We could have had a better discussion here.
Yeah,
that's just small.
If that camera
The intent of that camera was a wide, just so we're all working off pre-established definitions.
I mean, as far as I know, that lift did have the capability of moving, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, if we're looking for high level camera operators,
Moving with the play. That's
Yeah.
that would be a new one.
yeah,
19
It's
feet in the air. That
basically
thing
a-
was about ready. Well,
it's a
that thing was about ready to tip over, from what I heard.
Oh gosh, it's a cart cam, man.
So Daniel, do you see any forcible the element number 3? Let's evaluate that one.
Man, I'm having a really hard time evaluating element number 3. It doesn't seem like there's forcible contact to me, but it's one of those, and we have a lot of these where like we develop opinion, but there's all this space over here for us to be wrong. I think
Right.
that's probably where I am.
Right.
It looks like that sideline angle that could use a lot of work just looks like I don't know. It looks like it's to the body, right? Like that's the majority of the brunt of the force of the hit, like over in that shoulder, upper chest area. So that's kind of where I'm at.
All right. I don't see forcible contact either. Even though I had the player, I did see the indicator of the player dipping his head, and I think attempting to because right as he's about to make contact, I felt like he attempted to explode through the contact and his head was down. But I do feel like the primary force of the contact was shoulder, kind of to the back of the other shoulder as well of the quarterback, more so than forcible contact to the head or neck area or forcible contact with the crown of the helmet. So I don't see that either on this particular play.
As you kind of describe it, Tuta, and I rewatched the action from that end zone view. It'd be really nice to be able to just slow it down, but that's not how we officiate anyway.
Right.
It does look like there is just a slight duck by B35 just before contact.
Yeah.
It's a little bit outside the realm of, I think, a normal football tackle.
And that's where I see and that's where I had the indicator.
Yeah,
I just don't But I'm missing that forcible element with the crown of the helmet. And obviously we need that, right? Because we've already said, at least 80 whatever percent of us have already said he's not defenseless. So we can't just have forcible contact to the head and neck area and call it targeting. So we need that forcible contact with the crown of the helmet. Hopefully everyone understands that.
That's awesome. Well done, in my opinion, anyways. Quick question, though. When the player, there is some element of him getting to the side to minimize this, and I think that's what we're all talking about. But again, where does that fall? And I don't know if it's important, but I'm just going to ask a question. Does that effort to get to the side fall in element 2, or do we place that in element 3? I'm sure the answer is it depends, but I'm curious for how you guys see that.
I think it might go in both, honestly.
Okay. You're saying so I guess what you're saying then, for my interpretation, is that you saw him attack and take aim with the crown of his helmet.
Yes, but he
attack
missed.
and or take aim with the crown of his helmet. But then you saw him minimize his force.
Correct.
In some kind of a way, whether it was intentionally minimize his force or he just got lucky.
Right.
Okay. I guess I was actually thinking he efforted himself.
You're in a wind tunnel, Brandon Cruz.
I know. You hear that, huh?
Yeah.
Sorry.
This sideline angle doesn't look like any kind of indicator.
Big softball practice tonight. I was thinking he perhaps efforted away from attacking with the crown of the helmet, and that's why I had no indicator. But that's just an interesting thing to me. I think it is important to think about that.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think it's hard to say he tried to get to head to the side and that he also ducked his head for the purposes of tacking with the crown of the helmet. I feel like you kind of have to be on one side or the other.
Right.
And I'm on one side when I see the sideline and a different side when I see the end zone.
No, I'm with you, DY.
Is that allowed?
That's interesting. That could happen.
Is that allowed?
Yeah, that's allowed. So the back judge could see one thing and the headline judge could see another. And
Spoiler alert.
They might both be right.
Yeah. Great point.
Yeah. All right. Okay, cool. All right, that's a good way to start off today's session. Great mechanics again, just to reiterate about the center judge. Just dead ball officiating is so important, and just having the awareness to dead ball officiates an area that is not near where he needs to run to go get the ball. So that just shows that center judge had a very wide vision and was really actually officiating football on this play. And then obviously we had the really, really great discussion there on our favorite category to evaluate. So how about this?
Nice.
Very next play of the game. And we're going to load up a poll. We have 4 numbers that are going to pop up on the screen. First question we're going to ask is, when the video stops, where should the center judge be looking? And there are 4 options for us to choose here. Oh, we should.
This was one of our fastest plays in the referee center judge breakout. I think we only spent 45 minutes on this.
Right.
Yeah, you got y'all's efficiency just from preliminary reports is not going to be. You're not going to like the results of that.
Daniel, our conceptual load is probably 25 times yours. Though, if you really just want to be honest, and I think we do like to be honest around here.
We do like to be honest.
The other thing is we get right into video, Daniel. I've heard reports from certain folks that we don't do the kumbaya session. We just jump right into it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's good that you do, so you can actually get through a full half of a play.
Yeah.
We kumbaya as we go, man. We
Exactly.
kumbaya as we go. We build the plane after we take off.
Well, look, different strokes.
No, like I said, the conceptual load and throughput just intellectually is. Yeah, we might have to go another option in the deep room. To be honest, after reports.
All right, here we go. When the video stops, where should the umpire be looking? Same play. I think that's the left guard in pass protection at area number 2. That is the left tackle at area number 3 when the video freezes. All right, one more poll. When the video stops, where should the line of scrimmage official be looking? Line of scrimmage at the top.
Is there a reason 1 is a 3 times option?
I think this maybe was influenced by Brandon Cruz because
Wow.
he's told us over and over that line of scrimmage officials work the ball.
This reminds me of y'all's breakout session.
No,
It's really stupid and pointless.
it wasn't my week.
It's probably this is probably an insightful and hurtful type of poll too. I mean, I want to apologize to the line of scrimmage officials just for the continual action and harassment that you must get from Brandon Cruz. I'm just seriously
I
apologetic
had
for
plenty
that.
of great discussions we talked false start versus DOF. I mean, it's really hard, seriously. And we talked a lot of different things. Well, I did. I don't know. You were just over there saying something else. I'm not going to get into it here in a forum like this, but another stain on your jacket. Let's just say that.
So interesting. We had a play similar to this where we looked at concepts on, we talked about where should our eyes be as line of scrimmage officials when we have plays that kind of start moving outside. I wouldn't call this a sweep play. Obviously, it's a drop back pass that turned into a scramble. Let me stop the poll. But we had a conversation about this in the kickoff session as well. So it's really interesting looking at some of these poll results. Okay, so we thought between the three position groups, let's start with the center judge. We were split. We had 45% of us thought position number 2, 45% of us thought position number 3, which is really interesting. And I'm going to show the full video in a bit. And we maybe, if we're not necessarily used to working in a backfield, and maybe a tiny bit of nuance that we're missing. From the umpire position, I'm reading this and everybody can see I'm assuming everyone can see the poll results anyway. The umpire, we thought 14% of us thought the umpire should be looking at position number 2. 86% of us thought the umpire should be looking at position number 3. And then from the line of scrimmage perspective, 76% of us thought line of scrimmage should be looking at position number 4. 19% of us thought position number 3. And then we had one joker who wanted to rankle Brandon Cruz and said position number 1, which is where the quarterback was running with the ball. But for the most part, not many of us wanted to look at the quarterback. We had 9% of the center judges we thought should be looking at the quarterback as well. That's definitely answered. That's the incorrect answer. Most of what we do, there's no right or wrong answer, but that's a wrong answer. We don't ever want to just watch a player run in space with the ball. Just not much to do there.
Sometimes there's a wrong answer.
Yes. Before I load up the full play, one tiny bit of distinction. I want people to recognize this when we watch this video and it pauses. In position number 2, those are 2 big dudes. One of them, the defender, just disengaged from the offensive player. There's going to be almost no chance that he's going to do anything to a quarterback that is scrambling that would really warrant our strong attention. And we're going to see from the end zone angle, it looks a lot more obvious. It's probably not as obvious from this poor sideline angle shot. But it'll look a lot more obvious once we go to the end zone angle why we would not want to watch position number 2. So let me reload the full play, and then we'll kind of start breaking it down from the different positions. Where is the play? There's the play. So as we see, the defender is a really large dude chasing a quarterback. 10 times out of 10, the quarterback is going to beat that large dude to wherever he's trying to go. And you can look in the backfield, you see number 95. As he disengages from that block, you can see there's just no threat to the quarterback at all. So we would really, really, really strongly recommend the center judge find a more optimal spot for his eyes. Obviously, it's not watching the quarterback. And it's probably that action at where area 3 was setting up. And if we see the full video, we can see what ended up happening was a very large restriction at area number 3. And we can get into the evaluation of holding later if that would be a quality foul for holding. We had a lot of good discussion about that in the breakout room. But we can see that's an area that we really need to evaluate. And from the center judge perspective, we think that that's the best place for your eyes to be versus looking at the defender who has just disengaged from the offensive lineman. Brandon, anything else from the center judge perspective?
No, you nailed it. I really don't have anything other to add, I guess, other than, and self-evaluation was on high here.
Oh, yeah.
From the actual center judge on the screen, who admitted, yep, saw that. I think we had it at number 2, saw that, disengaged, and then just started chasing.
Yep.
Just started chasing and didn't look for another downhill threat to officiate. And this isn't in the real classic category of downhill threat, I guess, but it's just the next threat. And so we just had a great conversation about that.
Yeah.
In our room.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the umpires. This is the left guard in the backfield. And I kind of said that on purpose to try to trick people. The umpire's initial keys at the snap are guard, center, guard. And then we really just have to be dynamic relative to our visual mechanics, depending upon what the play presents and what it gives us. This presents itself as a pass play, and we immediately see some action deep in the backfield, which is the left guard, and we see some action a little further right at or a little tiny bit beyond the line of scrimmage, which is the left tackle. It is most prudent for the umpire to work the action that is more close to them than further away, especially when we're talking about these particular linemen. We wouldn't even want to look towards the left side of the defense because the quarterback but fairly quickly started escaping towards the right. So we really, really, really need the umpire to work that action with the left tackle, which was position number 3. Any further discussion on that?
The only further discussion is what the next poll talks about. So I think we can keep moving.
Yes, line of scrimmage officials. Area number 4 is really far downfield, I think, from and the sideline angle shows it really well. The quarterback is escaping. The quarterback is starting to become a runner. We need to identify the closest threat in front of and near the quarterback. And if we look all the way downfield, I think it'll be very, very, very tough for us to really work since, think about it. We got forward progress too, as well as line of scrimmage officials.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, I'm very serious. So
Stop it.
Just
Stop it.
stop.
So if we prioritize identifying,
You're going to keep going on this?
I am. If we identify blocking action nearest to where our vision is going to be, I think we would probably want to work position area number 3.
While you're at it, why don't you just look at the ball?
Perhaps
Watch the
Daniel Young and
quarterback
Brandon Cruz would disagree with me, but I think the best place for me as a line of scrimmage official, I would be wanting to work position number 3 as well.
No, I don't like that.
I refuse to engage you on this.
No.
Go ahead.
So we've got the number 3 receiver who slips out of the seam and runs downfield and is threatened the whole time. We've got the number 1 receiver at the tops of this trip formation who stays in this kind of shallow area, but is also threatened for the majority of it. There's some space there. So maybe he could help with number 2, but I just don't think the line of scrimmage official can rely on that. I don't think we need to be working blocks at this juncture of the play until we know that it's a run play. If the number 1 receiver is pressed more tightly and the deep wing doesn't have the opportunity to help on number 2 at all, and it's really easy for there to be a hold right there. That defender is hugged up too close on the number 2 receiver. And I just don't think we need to do anything other than that. Then maybe right now when we start to get close to the 35-yard line and we feel like the line of scrimmage becomes threatened, and we want to think about him as a runner. But I don't think at the time we pause the video, that's the best place for the line of scrimmage official to be looking personally.
I actually 100% agree with you.
Oh, okay. All right. See, dang it, Brandon. I should have just done what you did.
What a deek. What a deek.
Classic Salon.
So that was a great conversation we had, though, because we realized that from the center judge position, the center judge self-evaled on what he did. We already talked about that, right? He saw the disengagement at what we had as 2 and then started chasing, and we can see that on video. So I'm glad he did that, because if he didn't say that, it was going to be kind of clear that he wasn't properly self-evaluating. So we were pretty pumped about that. That was just a really good self-evaluation, which we had a ton of those all weekend, which was great. So then somebody said in the room, "Oh, that's okay. Line of scrimmage official is here." And we paused for a second and we said, "Whoa." Because that always gets our antennas up. We said, let's go back to the formation. Sure enough, trips this side.
Yeah.
Passing routes, all 3 receivers engaged.
Yes.
And defensive backs engaged. So we know we're working crew of 8. The whole intent of adding that 8th person, not the whole intent, but a big part of the intent of adding that 8th person to that offensive backfield, like what was done, sorry for the wind, was to get 5 sets of eyes in pass routes downfield, if at all possible. And this is a play where it's not only possible, it's required. So that's why we got to own this pocket area with the referee, umpire, and center judge, some kind of a way to see this block.
Yeah. And so so here's a great question. When do I transition to blocks? Like the quarterback started scrambling, but I'm gonna be honest, looking at the body posture of the quarterback, he didn't look like he immediately tucked the ball and decided to run. He kind of looked like he was still looking downfield. So it'll be very dangerous for us to switch to run mode too quickly as a line of scrimmage official, and then something happens to our receiver key downfield and we don't see it, and the quarterback tries to throw the ball.
Especially because receivers are coached, I believe, to adjust to the quarterback's movement, which means they're going to change direction. So there's going to be a new top of the route created, almost like this play. I don't know if this is the designed route. I really apologize for the wind. But if when he changes direction like that, it's very close to that defensive back hooking and slingshotting himself to stay into the play.
Yeah.
Maybe not with this, what we see here in terms of the capability of these players, but man, I think that's a big threat, obviously, that we have to have 1, if not 2 sets of eyes on, but for sure 1. If the line of scrimmage official is just watching the quarterback here or trying to officiate blocks on the line, we're really at risk to miss that. So when quarterbacks break contain, receivers are going to change directions.
Yes.
When receivers change directions, they either push off or get held, which means we need to see that.
There you go. All right. Well, how about we evaluate the action itself and figure out how do we know if we should be throwing out flag on this? I don't think we need to go into too much discussion on whether we see restriction or not. I think that's fairly obvious that there's restriction.
Yes.
Okay, so now what? All right, we got restrictions, so we need to throw out flag, right?
Well, we got to talk about point of attack, and then we got to talk about, did this have an effect on the play in terms of timing?
Yeah. So this looks to be really far away from the quarterback. It kind of like the quarterback is running way outside, and this happened way inside. Man, I just want to tell myself this is really far away, and this dude's probably not going to catch the quarterback anyway. Like how do we determine from a proximity standpoint that if it had any impact on the play?
Well, the longer the delay, go ahead, DY. You got this.
Well, we actually had a lot of conversation about this in our
What? I think that's
because
like putting out fires and roasting marshmallows and stuff.
I can't hear what Brandon's saying over the wind.
I can't either. I can't, and I'm choosing to not hear it. We talked a lot about it because remember, Corey, we had comments like, oh man, what was one of them? They're really common. We hear them when we're talking about not calling a foul, whether it's blocking the back or holding. It's like, well, here's one. I don't think he can make the tackle.
Yeah.
And we really dug into that because our perspective, Corey and I talked about like, that's a really dangerous way to think about it, even though as I go through this conversation, it's going to sound like the exact same thing. It's really not. Because when we just say, well, I don't think he could make the tackle or I don't think he could get there, we get into really gray, way more subjective area than what you're talking about, Brandon, is really just kind of piecing together the concept of proximity and time and making a decision about whether or not it had an impact on the play. When you start trying to get so minute where you say, well, I don't know if he can make the play, man, we're going to have 10 guys look at that and we're going to have 10 different answers about that. Well, there's only 2, so I guess we won't have 10 different answers, but we're not all going to agree about whether or not the guy can make the play. What we really want to think about is proximity and time, and allow that to inform this impact. And really, it's ultimately we're coming to a conclusion about, does it rise to the level of material restriction or not? And proximity and time are two really big factors of that. And then we throw in the degree of restriction and all of that, put that in a blender and come out with material restriction. So that's what we want to think about. When this occurs, clearly well before the dead ball, right? I mean, the restriction is huge long before. And then does the proximity occur in such a space that, given the amount of time from the proximity to the dead ball, and this is where it gets a little bit double-sided, does it have an impact? And so really what we're saying is, well, could he have maybe made a play? But again, I think it's important not to go down to the road of could he made the tackle or not. I think it's a different consideration, even though it sounds really, really similar. Are you guys tracking with me on that?
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah. How about could he have affected the play instead of made the play or made the tackle? Maybe could he have had an effect on the play? Would that help?
Yeah, I like that better than could he have made the tackle for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this dude
Maybe it
ended
goes
up
at about-
gaining
maybe it goes at
5%.
about 3 or 4 yards, less than he gains here. Just
Right.
because of that pursuit. I don't know. I have no idea.
So we end up with after the interception, we end up with some illegal block in the back type of action at about the 40-yard line. Then we end up with a big block down at about the 25-yard line. We need to go in order of occurrence. Let's talk about the illegal block in the back action first. And Daniel, I believe the back judge ended up having a conversation. The umpire actually threw the flag. The back judge had a conversation and ended up having the umpire pick the flag up. Is that correct?
DY's got a transition.
Yeah, DY
Okay.
had to take off for real quick. But yeah, that is exactly what happened. So umpire has a flag for illegal block in the back. Back judge comes in with information that ends up picking up the flag.
Yeah. What do you see, Corey, from the blocking the back action that we're looking at?
Just the action itself.
Yeah, just the block in the back action itself.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely. I mean, the block is definitely in the back. Now, from a forceability, I think that's where there was a lot of discussion about. What caused him to go down? Was he stumbling already? But to me, a player does not want to be in a bear crawl position to pursue a runner, and so what happened in that? So in our discussion over this play, we got a lot into, don't look at so much, okay, was it that big of a hit? Was it that much of a force? What was the impact of said force? And that can help be a determining factor into, whether or not that block was forcible enough to rise to a level of foul.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, I see enough that it puts this player on his hands. That for me, I think that I like this as a block in the back. If you're just asking foul or no foul.
Right. And then we got, I guess, a block is an intentional act. I know one of the things that we heard was 25, who was the player who did the block. Well, he was just trying to protect himself. The player was in his way. He was just kind of trying to ward the player off as he moved on. I don't see that, especially from the end zone angle. I see a deliberate push by number 25. So to me, it is a deliberate act. And just like you mentioned, from a forceability standpoint, we're not evaluating that. We're looking at the impact of what the action was. And I do see a deliberate push, which to me is a block. And clearly, I don't think anybody can argue that the contact was in the back.
Oh, absolutely not. And I think that was a great point that we, kind of discovered, somebody's protecting himself. It just has different body language.
Right.
This is a guy's taking advantage of a situation. He sees a player in front of him, and he's just going to push him down. So
Right.
And we've got to see that detail on the field.
Right. And here's the deal: defensive players are allowed to block in the back to pursue the ball carrier or a loose ball. Well, what we need to evaluate at this point in time, although he was originally playing defense, at that point in time, when his team has the ball, he is no longer a defensive player. He's not pursuing the ball carrier. He has turned into an offensive player. So he can't do that. Now, let's reverse the roles and the white team still had the ball, then that action that we see there with that push would be legal.
This one too. I mean, you talk about advantage, disadvantage, impact on the play. Put this halfway across the field, and it just wouldn't rise to the level of anything, right? Just absolutely nothing.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
How close? This is a great proximity play. So how close this is. You know, this guy's going to try to pursue this runner. Could he have made a play? I don't know. The runner might have him beat. Maybe. Who knows? The runner's in a full sprint. This guy's trying to change direction, but he was taken out of any opportunity to make the play, and he's very, very close. So that's gotta have a higher threshold of evaluation.
Yeah. Okay. Now, well, who's going to see it? Let's talk about that. Who in the world is going to see that block and evaluate that block? We saw the umpire actually saw it and threw the flag. Is that, and then the back judge talked to the umpire about it. What about the deep wing, Corey? Do you think the deep wing could have a chance of working that action? And should we, as a deep wing, work that type of action?
We're talking about the potential blindside.
No, the illegal block in the back action first.
Blocking the back 100%. I mean, that is probably, we talked about angles in our deep breakout of who on this play would actually have the best angle. And everybody said deep wing 100% would have the best angle to look at this just because of where we're positioned on the field. We think, second would have been the umpire, and then probably the worst angle of all three would have been the back judge. But from a deep wing perspective, this is exactly where we should be looking as this play, as we turn into reverse mechanics. This is where our eyes should take us. That should be the first thing we see, and quite frankly, there's really no reason why we shouldn't have the most perfect angle at it.
Yeah.
And then how about our line of scrimmage official who really provided a great self-eval, maybe in terms of not 100,000% of where her eyes were, but just almost more kind of in a learning format. You see what I'm saying? Like she kind of thought, man, I got to get my reverse mechanics. So she admitted her brain was telling her reverse mechanics, get downfield. And if you look at the play, you got reverse mechanics, but I think what was explained by our line of scrimmage clinicians is we got to stay back with that first threat. And then Corey, you had a great analogy, but it's escaping me. That's why I'd like, if you can remember what you said when you're talking about reverse mechanics, reversal of roles between the deep wing and the line of scrimmage. I think
the easiest way to remember this is if you're a line of scrimmage official and you have say you're a headline judge, you have an H on your back. In reverse mechanics, you are just now switching. You become the S on your side. And so even with just the most basic understanding, comprehension of a deep wings mechanics on a regular scrimmage play, just reverse that. And I think people will find a higher level of comfortability with reverse mechanics, because I think it's really hard to switch. And that same goes for the deep wing, because all of a sudden we go from having an S on our back to an H on our back, and our responsibilities, they just flip. And so instead of trying to get into the minutia of where you should be looking and yada, yada, just, consider yourself, you're now a line of scrimmage official as a deep wing, whether it's an interception like this play or a punt return for that matter.
And so what hit it home for me, because I had never really heard you or anybody else talk about it like this, and when you did, it was so perfect. If this was just a play up the sideline, this is what you asked the line of scrimmage official. If this was a play up the sideline that was not a reverse mechanic, where would you expect your deep wing partner to be looking at this moment in the play? Right?
Yep.
Isn't that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Her eyes lit up. She said, well, the side judge would be looking at this block. And that hit it home. Yes. Then as a headline judge in reverse mechanics, well, that's the block we should be looking at.
Yep.
So as simple as that is, maybe it's not so simple, but it really simplifies the thought process of trying to figure out what the heck to do in this. I just thought that was a fantastic instructional moment in camp. And first of all, kudos to you for bringing that to all of us. And secondly, the line of scrimmage official, she was just so receptive and not overly, but just very, very grateful to learn in that moment. And she expressed as much
Well, sometimes we look for these complex answers when the simplest answer sometimes is the best. And we often overlook that in football and in life. So, I try to keep it as simple as possible.
All right. Well, we ain't done on this play. There's a pretty big block that we need to evaluate, and the end zone angle is not the best for this. Let me try to load up. This is going to be an experiment here.
Not that we would ever experiment with new technology, ever have it completely blow up in our faces. Excuse me.
Yeah, so I'm trying to upload a tiny clip. I probably didn't clip it well enough. We see a block at about the 25-yard line that we need to evaluate. Did I loop it? I don't know if I looped it. Yes, I did. Okay, 25-yard line. We're evaluating potential for illegal blindside block. Is that the hash mark at the bottom at the 25-yard line? And to determine if we have an illegal blindside block, the first thing we have to have is a blindside block, meaning is the player who's being blocked, can they see the block coming, and do they have a reasonable expectation to be able to defend themselves? I think this is clear and obvious that this block is delivered from the blind side. I don't think there's no argument. No one can argue that this is a blindside block. Am I on track here?
Yes, sir.
All right,
this
perfect.
was one where you were not on an island. You were in the major metropolis.
I see what you did there. I actually like being both. I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes it's good to be on an island.
It's good to be on an island sometimes.
Yeah, but I'm a city boy. I love being in the city.
Yeah. Well, you're a man of the people, as you always tell me.
No, I think that was. I sensed some. I don't know. I don't think that was a genuine statement right there. But okay.
Extreme genuinity, whatever that word is.
Okay, so the block is from the blind side. Fine. We got that. Next thing we need to see is there force? Do we see an attacking element? And Corey, what do you see on this particular block relative to the force and attacking element of this block?
So I think for me, a lot of the, when I am evaluating force, I look to see the actual position of the two players involved. And these two players are kind of running down the same plane, if you will, the plane of the 25-yard line in this situation. So when that happens, that really kind of dictates whether or not there will be an attack element, because you'd really want to see somebody kind of going against the grain or peeling back, whatever you want to use, where that force would come into play. And so for me here, I do not see an attacking element. I just see this, in essence, is kind of a shoulder nudge. And when a nudge like this comes from your blind side and you're not able to, to defend yourself against it, it is going to have a high impact. You're going to see a player fall down, but that doesn't mean that there's an attack or a forcible. It's just the nature of the block. So for me, I do not see either. I see neither an attack or forcible contact.
I like what you said about the players running kind of on the same plane, because I never really fully thought about that, but they're almost kind of running side by side, as the contact develops.
Right. Now, if the player, purple comes from, say, the 20 and delivers that same type of hit, he's probably going to have a bigger head of steam behind him.
Yeah.
And then you have that attack because he is going against the grain, which to me is inherent of the attacking posture. And then you're probably going to have a higher degree of force behind it as well.
Right. Cool. All right. So you don't have a foul for illegal blindside block, although you do see it from the blind side. I'm the same way. I do not have a foul for illegal blindside block because I don't see a lot of attack and I don't see a lot of force delivered by the blocker either. I know, and we talked about that a little bit. There can be forcible collisions that don't involve forcible contact being delivered by the blocker. And I think we need to make sure we're careful. I know we had some discussion about, well, the player went to the ground and we can't just stop there because people are going to go to the ground. That doesn't necessarily make it a foul.
Correct.
All right. Well, okay. Now we got to see it,
Right.
Okay. how do we see it? Who are we thinking needs to be seeing this? Because it was great when we talked in the closing session. I don't believe anyone on the crew saw this block at all, and that obviously is a huge problem. How do we see this?
Well, I mean, I think part of the reason nobody sees this is we have a coincidence involved. That, you know, I think primarily this is an area of the field we would expect our umpire to be looking, and so on this particular play, he's working a foul, you know, prior in the play, and so we did talk about, and I know, you know, Bill Bishop talked about this in the umpire session, that when you have this, and this goes for any official really, when you have a foul, get your flag, you know, you can get your flag out, but you have to continue officiating. And, you know, talking to this particular umpire the next afternoon, he just said he was so caught up in figuring out what the number was that it really kind of delayed his process and short-circuited his process, if you will, which prevented him from getting up there. But that may be, and that could happen, but I still don't think that, you know, we should have people looking at this, because there's really only two possible engagements that are happening at the time of this. We have one against the quarterback, and then this particular block we're talking about. So
Right.
what does that mean everybody else is watching? And
Right.
You know what we think that is. It's probably the runner, you know, and in talking to the deep wing on this play, you know, he admitted he ended up watching the runner. And I think that while this is, you know, kind of on the inside, you know, very much at the inside, this is the first thing that we could have a look at as a deep wing. And I also think the back judge, you know, so I'm just going to evaluate from the deep position, unless you guys talk about stuff up front. But, you know, I think deep wing, both deep wings for that matter, even the field judge across the side of the field, this is a prime opportunity for when we talk about if the reverse mechanics is you know, on the other side of the field, this is where that wide vision opens up and you can see all of this take place.
Yeah. So we had a really good conversation in our breakout with the center judge. When you talk about self-evaluation, I've never heard self-evaluation as good as his was. He also admitted, he said, I know I got to get to the goal line. So he was like, I'm just going to run to the goal line. Then he realized as he started doing that, he said, wait a minute, I need to officiate. And then so he kind of slowed down, started officiating. And then what he realized is he was just watching the ball. And that was the greatest self-evaluation I ever heard. I think the center judge would have a really, really, really good shot at seeing this if he was working more optimal visual mechanics. The other thing from the referee perspective, we have to, on changes of possession, work the quarterback if we're a referee. This is just kind of bad luck because the referee is in actually probably the best position of any official on the field to evaluate this particular block. But the quarterback decides he wants to get froggy and go play football. So the referee rightly had to go and evaluate action on the quarterback. So he was kind of taken out of the equation as well on this play. Really good play. Two potential foul actions. One, we threw a flag on and picked it up. We thought that maybe the flag should have stayed down. Then the second one, no flag was thrown, but nobody saw it, and we do not believe it was a foul. But obviously, you know how we do it with pure officiating. We could easily just say that's not a foul and move on. We don't want to do that because we are more process oriented, and we really want to ensure that we all work sound mechanics every single play and be in the proper position to evaluate action, not necessarily just evaluate the action on video and say foul, no foul. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, we had a lot of these discussions, like when we don't throw the flag, it's either because we were so good mechanically that we saw it and made the right decision, or we just got lucky, right? We didn't see it. We just got lucky. And really the result's the same, which is no flag, no foul called. But, you know, that's why I was so impressed with a lot of the campers this weekend in terms of when we got in the video room, which we had the opportunity to review our work twice. So we got to work, review work in breakouts, work again on the field, and then review that work in a second round of breakouts. And I thought the self-evaluation was at a really high level. So that was great, you know, and so these different concepts came up a lot. And I just wanted to express a lot of appreciation for that.
Yep. All right. Go ahead, DY.
Well, the only other thing I was going to add too is that, a lot of times where we should be looking, dependent, whatever our position on the field is dependent upon what the players are doing. And so one of the things we mentioned when we evaluated this play was the idea of responsibility, and is it my responsibility or not? And we talked about maybe a better way to conceptualize it is, just thinking about, is that where I should be looking or not? Which again sounds super similar, but I think it's a little bit different, because if it's not your responsibility, then it's easier just to not ever get to that place. We have areas of responsibility, we know that, but if we just think about where we should be looking, a lot of officials on this play are going to go here and see nothing, here and see nothing, and then maybe end up on this block, because guess what? Throughout the course of the return, once we clear the block in the back, we've got 2 engagements, and then we've got everybody else just running downfield with really minimal, if any, threat of other engagement. So hopefully, put yourself in the shoes of the officials on this play and think about it from that perspective. I think that's helpful too.
Excelente.